With the current volatility in global trade and commerce, everyone in the manufacturing, transport, and logistics industry is looking for the best way forward in planning their future supply chain and logistics. It is with this in mind that the Transport Logistics Middle East has launched this unique series in podcasts, and we speak to industry leaders with visionaries to find out their views and what they think lies in store for the future. Today, we speak to someone who is not a stranger to the industry, someone who I consider to be an idol for me and for many of my colleagues, Hamdi Osman, who is the founder and CEO of SolitAir, an air carrier dedicated to revolutionizing air cargo logistics by creating the first regional scheduled daily express cargo airline where we connect or they connect Africa, the GCC, the Indian subcontinent, and the STAN countries. With B2B and B2C e-commerce setting record volumes in the Middle East, with each passing year, air cargo is playing a critical role in quickly and reliably fulfilling e-commerce orders, and this demand is only increasing every year. Solitair's mission is to meet this demand by creating an optimal network of air cargo routes across the global south. Let's meet Mr. Osman and find out in his own words, how he sees the air cargo and logistics landscape unfold in the upcoming months, years, and possibly Solitaire will talk about how they are preparing for the same. Mr. Osman, thank you very much, Hamdi. It's great and a pleasure to be here with you today, and especially in this beautiful decorated office of yours.
Oh, thank you, Joe, and good morning, everyone. And thank you to Transportation Logistic Middle East, giving us the opportunity to talk about the past, the present, and the future in logistic and transportations.
Excellent. And who else would be better than Hamdi Osman to actually talk about the past, present, and the future of cargo and logistics?
So, well, it's a few of us still around in the lovely city of Dubai, and I think we have good memories, and we like to share most of those memories with the new comer into the region, especially in our region, the Middle East, Indian subcontinent, and Africa. And we also like to the new generation to learn from the old generation to move forward, and that's what it's all about.
You're talking about old comers and coming to actually advise and support the newcomers into this industry. I've been dying to ask you this question. And actually, ever since I've known you, I wanted to know more about this article that was written back in 1995 in actually American Overseas Magazine. It talks about three things. Talks about you, and I believe it was written in 1995. This is when the research shows. Talks about you, Hamdi Osman, born in Egypt, made in the USA, and perfected in the Middle East. Tell me more about that. What does that mean? Because I want to be just like that.
Oh my God, you're gonna get me in trouble. Actually, the American ambassador that year almost almost not talked to me ever because the poor guy had on the front page of the magazine him and his family sitting in the backyard of his house, and in the middle pages, Hamdi Osman in his office with the American flag on my suit and tie. And I think the people back in Washington asked him, who is the ambassador? So with that in mind, it is great to have a future. I was one of the lucky people in my life that my dad was in the Navy and was able to encourage me to travel. So I traveled during the holiday month from first year in university, the second year, the third year to different countries. So I started from Italy, then UK, then Germany, and then when I finished 1976, I ended in the US. And from there, I never looked back. And very quickly, from football career into washing trucks for FedEx in Newark Airport. And from there, from Newark, New Jersey, being a manager to city manager in New York, managing New York City in the best years of our lives. People my generation in the 80s, mid 80s, those the great years in New York. Then became managing director in the Northeast, which I have Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, upstate New York. And that was a great time also, late 80s, late 80s, and from 88 until 1990. Then I got promoted to go to California. From California, it uh, was not a happy time. Within a month, I got the phone call. You the only Arabic speaking in the managing director level, and we have a war going on in the Middle East. And FedEx have won the uh, military movement for all the MAC flights, the military action flight, and we need somebody who's Arabic speaking to come to the region.
What year was that?
1990.
1990s. So during the Gulf War.
During the Force. So I landed, and before you know it, I was a year later managing director for the Middle East Indian subcontinent. And I never looked back. We were supposed to be here on a mission for about 2 years. Like everybody else will come to Dubai. Once you drink the water in Dubai, once you get the sun and the sea and the sand in Dubai,
You're stuck in.
here I am, 35, almost 35 years later, I'm still here. So with that, I got moved on to take over many position in FedEx, to take over Africa, and later on all of the Indian subcontinent. And late and early 2000, I became the senior vice president for Europe, Africa, Middle East, Indian subcontinent, as equal to CEO for that 132 country, with many, of course, responsibility, including the air and the ground position.
Hamdi, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about your role here in SolitAir. But first, I wanted to just stick around and talk a little bit more about FedEx. You were the first who started the first FedEx hub in Dubai. Tell me about that. How actually did that become about, and what were the challenges and maybe the opportunities that you faced at that time for you to start such a thing? As we can see, FedEx today is one of the most prestigious companies that are actually in this industry, and here being in Dubai as well as one of the operating the major hubs in express mail, and obviously one of the major integrators here. How did that go about?
Well, it was a little small story about, when we started a hub and we need to fly, and anybody in aviation would tell you, Bahrain is the central location in terms of aviation if you really want to save money, because flying from Europe to Asia, if you go through Bahrain, you save 20 minutes, not in Dubai. But after looking into Bahrain, Saudi, into the region, between a couple of the cities and all the stuff, and I had a chance to sit with His Highnesses at the time and ask a few questions. And I wrote to my chairman at the time, Fred Smith, and I said, if the people in Dubai do just 10% of what they said they're going to do, I think Dubai should be the hub where FedEx should be landing, not anywhere else. And sure enough, thank God I was right. Thank God, and I appreciate this support and help came from Memphis and from the chairman. And in 1994, we have our first flight landed in Dubai. And with that, also, we have the first building to be built in Terminal 2 at the time, which was FedEx, before anything else was built in Terminal 2. And with that, you could not get a better support, better place, better position, better capital for Middle East, for FedEx than Dubai. And from that, the rest is history, as they say. And you see how the world is so small. I retired back in 2012. And SolitAir today is Hamdi 3.0. So I created the first Hamdi 1.0 in
US.
in India. No, first one in India, which is when I came to the region. So our plane was landing in Mumbai. And after you pick up on Monday in the US, you land in Mumbai on a Tuesday. And it takes about anywhere between 5 to 10 days to get it into Delhi, Bangalore, Madras, Chennai, any of those cities. And I said, this is crazy. So I told our last mile company, it's called Blue Dart Express. I said, guys, you better start applying for AOC, Air Operating Certificate. You're going to be in aviation. You're going to be an airline. They laughed so hard because the 3.0 at the time, they said you couldn't even put food on the table, and you tell us we're going to be in aviations. Anyway, make a long story short, 1994, Blue Dart got their license, and we up in the air to be in the company for FedEx to be able to deliver all the goods for FedEx overnight when arrive into India to all anywhere within India. So that was 1994. 1995, also another idea, which is Hamdi 2.0, to create a company or aviations with a couple of the investors. And thank God our friends from Kuwait believed in the idea. and they put their money in, and they own a big chunk of that airline. It's called Falcon Aviation Express Cargo Airline, which helped to maneuver through the GCC, so cover all the GCC countries, and later on covered Iraq and covered Afghanistan, all the war zone, to help FedEx. So when FedEx landed in Dubai, Falcon Express Cargo Airline was taking the goods beyond Dubai, beyond the Middle East, and from there, Corona came, and I'm in retirement, and I saw there was a huge need. There is no more passenger; everything was cargo, and I said, I think Hamdi 3.0 need to be born.
But before we do that, before we actually talk about this, let me ask you this. Many people in our age, obviously, I mean, you're not much younger than me, but okay, I'll put it the other way around. You're not much older than me. But anyway, people in this position and in your position, in our age, when we actually retire from a Fortune 500 company, such as the one you retired from, they think about, sitting on the beach somewhere with a real nice cold drink in their hand, thinking about what they're going to do next for dinner and where they're going to go for the next trip. Where did this come from? Hamdi 3.0 now looking for another career and starting another company and starting another venture in his life to move on. So tell me about that.
Joe, you hit it on the hit the nail on the head. Uh, Remember, in any industry, in any businesses, as you know, at the end of the day, it's all about passion. It doesn't matter what you do for a living. If you don't have the passion, honestly, you will not have a good company, you will not have a good business, you will not be a good leader. Okay, there is a lot of things in the trade to have to become a good leader, but the one really the secret ingredient of any good leader or a great leader or a great company from a good company, it is the passion behind it. And I have a passion for this industry, and my passion have always been logistics, transportation, and aviations. And I could not let that opportunity pass when I saw what happened during the corona and the movement of goods and how the world was stand still. The only thing was moving is aviations. And my heart was beating every single day. I am not gonna sit, you know, in this house or in that without me getting involved in there. Unfortunately, it took me about 2 years or 2.5 years to really get Solitaire off the ground. But I'm glad I'm here. We're glad we got it started. So it's all about the patient. Anything else, patient and passion. And being passionate about something that you love is more than anything else. I cannot put dollar sign next to.
Excellent. I mean, I'm glad you said that because this is very important, especially when we have passion. The passion is what really drives us to be successful, and absolutely true. And this is what actually divides people from knowing what they're doing and people who pretend to know what they're doing. Is if they don't have the passion for it, obviously you'd never see it.
Absolutely.
Now, Hamdi, let me ask you this. Speaking of the passion, you are the first hub outside of the semi-government entities that operate within Dubai airports. How is that going for you? And is that actually something that you had envisioned to be a success? Basically, because you are a hub on your own and you're operating your own aircrafts within your own building. Is that how it works right now, Solitaire? This is how it happens?
Joe, I think one thing that a lot of people misunderstood the Dubai Inc., what Dubai is all about, and why Dubai get this international brand overnight. Although I know it took a lot of hard work and a lot of loyalty, trust, and everything to build that brand. I saw a video with Chef Muhammad on the day of opening of Emirates Airline. And somebody asked him, Your Highness, how you see Dubai in many years? And this is 1985, so before I arrived. And I never, never, ever forgot that video on what Sheikh Muhammad's answer was. 1985. That, we open for business and will help and support business to grow. And if I did not realize that back in 1991 onwards, and for every step of the way, I'm built in our hub in Terminal 2 because I said cargo village cannot be the solution if Dubai wants to grow? Can we do something different? And sure enough, His Highness and His Highness Sheikh Ahmed bin Saeed and the support and everything they given to every international company, especially in the air and the open sky policy and all of that, would not have people like me taking the chance at this age after they retire to go with a bold statement and to do what we have done right now. And if anything, that means telling the whole world Dubai open for business and let's come, let's have more competition on that. Let's all enjoy it because the center of universe, as Amar used to have their own logo, center of universe is Dubai. That's I really believe in that, and especially in the aviation, you cannot find a better theater to do what we're doing in here. Because again, if you look at gateway to Africa, Dubai, gateway to Indian subcontinent, Dubai, gateway to CIS, Dubai. So where else? Gateway now to Europe is Dubai. So with that in mind, with DP World, what they have done, what Dubai have done on the aviation and logistic transportation, and soon now with all the changes is happening in our region, with all the good news and geopolitics coming, I know we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but with all this great news, it go back into my dream in 1993. I said, if we can perfect the ground from Jabal Ali all the way to Istanbul, all the way to Turkey, Dubai can be able to compete worldwide. And at that time, we were talking about sea, air, because at the time, a lot of company, including us, UPS, DHL, everybody, you come in full into the region and you're going back empty to Europe or back to the US. And this is when sea, air was born. Ships coming from China, coming into Dubai, unload and taking the emergency goods, put it on those empty planes and take them back into either Europe or US. And how Dubai moved from not even part of the first 50 ports in the world, MENA port,
Mhm.
to become one of the top five, if not now, if not number one, number two, or one of the top five in the world as a port.
But before we get into the geopolitical aspect of this business, let me just continue with the Dubai story a little bit here and talk a little bit more about what you have just mentioned, the Dubai ports, obviously the Jabal Ali Free Zone, and where you're located at right now in the Dubai World Central Free Zone, and how is that with the sea to air and air to sea business been actually improved by connecting the two free zones together and making this whole thing into one free zone where cargo can move freely between the sea and air to sea. As you saw what's happening between like 2012 and 2015 when all the retrogrades came out of Afghanistan through GWC and went by sea to whatever the NATO countries where the US was the major carrier at the time. So how is that helping you today with this concept in mind, having the visionary leaders like Sheikh Rashid and Sheikh Mohammed coming after him and putting this plan together? Sheikh Rashid put in, saying that there will be a seaport here someday and put in the Jabal Ali port and then moving across the desert into the desert about 25 kilometers away and putting a stick in the ground saying there'll be an airport someday. And this is where we're sitting at today. So how is that working for you today, Hamdi?
Joe, will be unfair to talk about what the future is going to be and what how we're going to benefit from this without saying something very critical and very important, because your company and our company, it's all about logistic transportation and aviation in between. Now, our industry, it's three mode, only three mode,
Correct.
either by air, by sea, or by ground. No buts, no ifs. You cannot perfect anything else. I don't know. Maybe later on you're gonna put it in rockets, push the button, and it gets there.
Or trails.
So that's train, of course, but it's part of again ground. Okay. So with that in mind, so when I look at Asia and what's the challenge Asia has in the Asian country, the biggest challenge is the road between countries. So you only have two modes of transportation, sea and air. Now come to the Middle East. Other than the GCC, you can do air, sea, and ground. But outside of the GCC, you still have two modes, sea and air.
Correct.
And we go on and on and on. So when people say, ground is going to take over, or sea is going to take over, or sea is cheaper than air, this and that, all the three modes always going to be there for many years to come. So with that in mind, so I want to just put stop to the rumor of, is cheaper by sea or cheaper by ground or, whatever. Air is always going to be there. When you want it there tomorrow, it's always going to be air.
Of
So
course.
as a result of that, we are not scared to start air operations, and it is short worldwide. They are short. If you see how much is moving goods uh, worldwide, if I take 2023, not to 2024, and you say, okay, there was about 70 million tons of moving goods, okay, as an air freight. Now, if you break that down by how many air cargo involved and how many in there, there's a shortage.
Of course.
So as a result, you really, if you start looking into the express industry and you break it down, how much of that is express industry? There's a shortage in that. The only difference is nobody yet, thank God, nobody yet has perfected what we created in SolitAir. It's all about express, schedule, daily airline.
Interesting.
And it just happened to be cargo. We took the seats, we put containers. We took the packages, we took the people out, and we put packages. That's it. Nothing differentiates us from passenger. So we have timing. Like right now, say for example, we fly to Riyadh. Now we have two flights rather than one flight. One that leaves early in the evening, at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and the second one leaves at 1 o'clock in the morning. So that just to give you an idea. So that the kind of things that the customer will get used to, because you're doing daily. You're no longer just doing a charter.
Correct.
Or just if somebody needs it.
As you mentioned earlier, I mean, when you need it, you need it. And if it happens to be you need it tomorrow, there's only one solution, and it's only by air.
And also, Joe, you have to understand the world we live in right now, the world of expectations. And that's that's my most dream. And that absolutely. And that's why I always talk about customer expectation. That's my motto in life, about customer expectation. It's no longer customer experience, it's no longer CRM, it's no longer customer white gloves and all of that. It's about expectation. Now, that's one. Second, when you say customer expectation, what does it really mean in today in there? When you built in million square foot or 100,000 meter warehouses everywhere and all that, can you imagine? We live in a world of expectation. That means if I need it, I take it from the factory into the plane, into end user. That's the expectation. That's air cargo. And that's what's going to happen now. The world we live in right now, that's what's going to happen.
And that's exactly what I would expect if I was a consumer. I would want it today, not tomorrow. And our expectations have changed.
Absolutely. And our friends in the e-commerce would tell you 33% of what customer buy returned. Why? Because arrive after 3 days.
Correct.
And the customer forgot what did they order. So when they order something, they want it, if not today, they want it tomorrow or the day after.
Or yesterday even.
Absolutely.
Okay, Hamdi, it's really great to talk about that and then continue to build on what you've just mentioned earlier and the expectations of the customers and all that stuff. But what is the industry doing in order to prepare the world of logistics to meet the customer's demand, the expectations, the actually manufacturing demands or protocols or whatever? What are we doing in the industry in order for us to meet this? Are we changing things around, or things that it seems to me that only very few companies have actually took that serious and moved on to the next level, as you did with SolitAir. I mean, you took a concept and you changed it totally and made it fit air cargo specifically because of expectations, do you think?
Tom Peters, who I've always talked in any speech he ever make or any of his books, always talk about the description of insanity. doing the same thing day in and day out and expect different results.
Correct.
And this is what happened in the air cargo businesses. It has been the same since 1952.
Of course.
With IATA has been the same in the 1952 and beyond. Hasn't been any change. When I'm sorry to say again, and this is something that we're very proud of, when FedEx came along, that was this was the first disruptive company in that industry. At the time was a big company like Emory and Purilators and all of these companies. They said, who this company is? They're never going to make it. Guess what? Who one of the largest transportation company today. And the reason is, and that's the point I want to get to, because technology. So the game changer right now, to answer your question, is technology. Without AI, without technology, this industry not gonna succeed, not gonna make it. As a result, this is what we're doing. I always say SolitAir is just happened to be an air cargo middle mile company. However, we are a technology company with transportation on top. No buts, no ifs.
Very interesting. I like that. Can you tell me a little bit more about how is this a transportation company with technology company with transportation on top? Explain that, please.
Well, number one, you have to stay tuned, coming more on this topic, because all I want you to remember, we are SolitAir air cargo schedule airline, and soon you'll be hearing SolitAir Blue. And SolitAir Blue, you'll be the first one to hear about it, but stay tuned to the end of the year.
Excellent.
And it's all about technology. It's all about what we can do differently to change this industry.
So now, okay, I won't talk too much about the SolitAir Blue until you actually are ready to do that in the very near future. But what about the rest of the industry and the rest of the sector? What are they doing? How are they? Is there some changes that you see that the industry is actually adapting to or looking at to make sure that we put in the right technology, to put in, well, let me just say it this way. We don't speak the same language. Many of us in different companies, in different modes of transport, we don't connect somehow. I mean, some do, but the majority don't connect. I mean, if you're sending something by air and then it's going to move to road, somehow there's a disconnect. If you're sending something by sea and it's going to go by train and then move to road and then come by air, there's somehow a disconnect. There is not an easy or seamless, let's put it that way, a seamless process that would make this to go a lot smoother.
Sure.
Is there something going on in the industry? Are we talking to like the right universities and the right colleges and all of that to make sure that this education is taught?
Definitely. I mean, has been a lot of change over the last couple of years. And, when you see the blockchain and also anything that come in, a lot of the AI now have been introduced in the industry for the ground, for the air, for the sea. So there is a lot of movement into that. However, what really is still broken is the language of the technology language, and how you're going to make it seamless from start to end. And those the kind of things has to be disruptive. And how to be disruptive, obviously, you have to look at something which is or in being a quality guru or quality black belt and whatever. I drive on doing it right the first time and every time. It's not just doing it right one time, it's doing it right every time.
Excellent.
And with that, you cannot do any of that without, if you doing a routine, you have to mechanize that. And if you have something exception, you have to humanize that. So what does that mean? So if I'm doing something routine, I have to find the best way, the fastest way, the most accurate way to do that by using AI or using technology to be able to speed that process and making sure it's done correctly every time. And that's what I say, you be able to put in technology into routine and numbers to be able to get to speak to somebody because I have a problem.
Correct.
I lost my credit card in the machine and I want to talk to somebody to tell them because I don't know what's going to happen to my credit card or have, whatever few dollars on it. And I kept getting the machine. I got so frustrated, I ended changing my whole entire account from that bank to another bank because I could not, yes, call me old fashioned. I could not talk to a machine that is not responding to what I'm saying. I'm saying I have a problem, it's telling me, give me your account number. It does not work. In our industry, it has to really look into that,
Yes,
humanize the exception.
I totally agree. You mentioned a word that kind of struck another question in my mind. The word guru, being the guru of it, inequality and all of that. You're also known as the Global South guru. Tell me about what Global South. And I know Global South doesn't mean Dubai South. It means something a lot more than what we're talking about. Just you happen to be in Dubai South, that doesn't mean that this is what it means. Tell me more about Global South, please.
Joe, that's why I love you.
I would say.
You got right into the core of what Solitaire is all about. Back in 2019, I just happened to get involved in something to do with the global south. And as a result of that, I get to read more about it. I really did not know before 2019 what global south is and all that. And then all of a sudden by 2022, it became obvious the global south is what it is. What, you know, today, if I look from, and the global south is the Latin America, Africa, Middle East, Indian subcontinent, all the way to China.
Mm.
So that's the global south. Global north is the America, US and Canada, and take all the European and all of that. So if you call us the olive skin people, or all the way from Brazil, or from Latin America all the way to China and anything in between, what is the global south? Agriculture is global south. Manufacturing is global south. Golden mine is global south. Oil and gas is global south. Everything is global south. And can you imagine of the global south get together and put their hand together, what will be the power, the biggest power on God's earth? And also, we get out of 8 billion, probably, if I do my add calculation, or probably 5 billion out of that, if not 75%, could be closer to 80% of human beings live in the global south. So, with that, uh, 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 putting it together, global south is the most critical thing, and we saw that in the trade war between the US and between China and all the stuff. And China said, okay, US, you don't want to play, maybe I start focus on global south. And immediately things have changed, and now I can see things are calming down now and more relaxed, and we almost going back to basics again. And the all the madness is inside the bottle now, so there is, hopefully we'll see a different world in the next couple of months.
Well, that's great, and actually, what you just said will set us to move on to the next questions, and the next series of questions that I might have for you, or I do have for you. And actually, that is talking about the geopolitical situation. And not only just the geopolitical situation, but also talking about the tariffs that, President Trump has already announced once before that he was going to put that on. Had we had this conversation maybe last week, this whole thing would have been taken a different turn and we would be talking about something totally different. But now I really want to focus on the positive outcome of what had just happened in the last couple of days. Obviously, even yesterday, when we had President Trump in the region, and he's talking about the geopolitical situation, talking about lifting the sanctions off of Syria, and stopping the Indian-Pakistani war. Trade with China is going to be a little bit more smoother, and it's going to be a lot, less fighting back and forth, at least for the next 90 days. We're also talking about Lebanon possibly going into another phase of maybe even peace in the region and all of that stuff. Extending the Abraham Accord to many countries, as President Trump was talking about last couple of. What does that mean for a company like Solitaire? And how do you see this be a vision or maybe success in the very near future, a lot faster than you had actually hoped and anticipated in the past maybe month or so?
Well, Joe, I'm one of the lover of history, and as a matter of fact, most of my team members, all in the induction, I use the Alexander the Great, as the one of my heroes of all time, due to the fact is And I use also a couple of other heroes that
Like Joe Biden, for instance.
and uh, and people who really I admire over the years for what they have done over in history. And to have a young man up to the age of 32, 33 years old can capture almost one third of the world, with the power and everything back in 356 BC. And after the World War One and Two, and what happened to the world, and how things happened, and how Europe got built, and how country built their economy, and the economic situation, and all that. So, if I take the trend of Dubai 5 years up, 5 years down, 5 years up, 5 years down, and I use that all across the world and all that stuff, a business is always in growth, and the growth can drop from 15% or from 20% down to maybe 10% or 5%, but it's always growth, and it's always going in the right direction. And with the heavy changes that we see in the world with AI now, and so every other year, from if you take it from early 1900 to now, mode of things have changed. Who can believe today you can be able to talk to somebody, a loved one far away, and you can look at them and they can look at you, and just in time and all of that? Okay, 20 years ago, you wouldn't even dream to think of something like that. So things are moving so quick, so fast. So is our industry. So with the geopolitics, time has come. It could not be worse than what we saw in the last year. The whole region, and even until last week, the whole region was about to go on fire. There is not a country without another country without in pots. If I do patch, if it's Africa, the problem. In Asia, there is problem. In Europe was problem. So and it is so there is problem everywhere. Now, hopefully, we get into time of our life. Maybe when all these things will slow down. I'm not going to say we're always going to live in a perfect world, but always going to be lesser and lesser if and people going to look at the bright side of things. I'm a positive person, and as a result, I always look at the glass full, not half full, not half empty. The glass is full. With that in mind, I can see nothing but bright future for our young generations. And what I see today, this generation, I hope just um, to learn one third of the older generation to be able to make sure their feet is still on the ground, because they right now they're all in the cloud. And I want everybody to understand what I do understand is cloud. When you say things in the cloud, they must be tied to cable in the ground. Everything in the cloud is based in cable in the ground. So the ground is us, people with the wisdom, people with the knowledge and the experience combined together. And that's hopefully will help the new generation not to get to the crowd and forget about the land and about the cable.
Isn't it true what they say about the internet is actually cables laid underground? It's not really the satellite that's
That's exactly
pushing
you
the.
said it better. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I want to say.
Anyway, let me ask you this, Hamdi. I know this is great news for all of us in the Middle East, and I actually thank God and thank the president of the United States and the region leaders. I mean, like started with His Highness Mohammed bin Salman, and obviously the president of the UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed. God bless them all. They're basically looking at this to be a vision of the future and making peace count. What does that really mean for businesses, though? How does company like Solitaire benefit from such a decision, from something that is this? Does this open new doors for you? Does this allow you to move freely within the Middle East? And speaking of many different countries, maybe at one point we're not allowed to go to, but now with this vision in mind or with this process in mind, we can. What does that mean for you?
Just remember one thing. Solitaire alone as an air operator or middleman cargo airline cannot succeed by itself. We will rely on our partners alliance around the world. So anybody in the air cargo businesses, we have to and we must put our hand together, because each and every one of us will be good at something. So if I want to perfect our that part of our region, which is my focus in the global south, focus on, and I say connecting global south. As a matter of fact, our code sign as an airline, global south. So we took that name, and we're proud to have that name with us. And with that, to do global south, if I focus on the Middle East Indian subcontinent, somebody else is focusing with me on Africa, somebody else is focusing on Latin America, and someone focusing on beyond the Indian subcontinent into Asia and all that, from China all the way to Vietnam to Indonesia, Malaysia, and get down. If we all work together, every one of us will benefit. It's all about being united. We all have to be part of a chain. You cannot be the chain itself. No, impossible.
Correct.
You have to be part of the chain to have a perfect chain. And we are just a part of that chain. So we work with all the integrators, we work with all the freight forwarders, we work with all the airline, no exception. Everybody, we are neutral carrier. That's what I have in mind. That's what every member, every soldier of SolitAir, our Solitarian team, they understand this. Without others, we cannot survive. We do not have a competitor, nor we have an enemy. We have partners, allies everywhere. I rely on you today. You depend on me tomorrow.
Excellent. You know, this with this being in what having you said that, and I'm glad you mentioned it. This was one question I wanted to ask you about the competition, but you just answered my own question with your analogy and with your explaining the solitaire role, how you look at everyone as a partner rather than competitor. This is very important for our industry, especially in today's age and today's society. We're not all we are part of the same fabric, and each of us has a unique thread. And if we take that thread out, we may even damage that piece of fabric. We rely on everyone to be part of this whole industry. How Let me just put Saltair on the side here and only focus on Hamdi Osman. As the person, as the founder, as the CEO of Solitaire, how do you plan on changing this with the rest of the world? How do you make this other leaders and other people who are in the same industry and in the same basically uh, facing the same problems or facing the same issues? How do you bring them along and have them be part of this great vision that you just mentioned?
Well, if I can get them all to drink the Kool-Aid, then we all succeed. But here's the thing. And anytime, any chance I have to speak publicly or I'm on a stage, one thing that I always keep, and I said, the success of our industry, the aviation industry and the cargo industry, it has to be what we have inside SolitAir. What I, as Hamdi Osman, do, keep the main thing the main thing. I focus on the main thing. I focus on the main thing every single day. Every Solitarian, you meet him anywhere, and if you ask what is the number one thing on your mind, and we say we keep the main thing, number one. Number two, I'm stuck with one aircraft, the narrow body, 22 tons, 6 hour flying, and I go to nearest hub. And that's what I want to specialize in. I'm not going to compete in the wide body aircraft. They are professional, can do that. All the airline, they're very good at it. And let them be that. And that's my allies. And other have the middle mile. That's great. That's the 40 tons, the 60-ton aircraft. They're very good at it. Let them be there. We work with each other. So I decided this is the section I want to be in. I'm going to focus on that. And I just be there. And let me be the best in that section, in that area, and give my partners, alliance, the other where they can do better for us. Can you imagine? Now, all the big names, all the air cargo from Emirate Cargo, Turkish Cargo, Qatar Cargo, Etihad Cargo, they can be able to bring the goods from far away, bring it into the region. We can take it from the region into the nearest point, the 2 hour flying, the 1 hour flying, the what have you, within the region. We work with each other. Same for the integrated, the FedEx, the UPS, the DHL, the Amazon. When you get all of that working with us or working with them, and that's alliance, because I don't think any one of them can cover the whole entire world. when they said we cover 240 countries, or we go to 240 cities, how? You cannot fly every single day to each one of them. So we have to rely on each other.
You have partners who actually do the rest of the work for you. You know, this has been a great interview and actually been a great podcast. And I really want to thank you for sharing with me and with us and with the whole world your knowledge and your experience and your great story. This is the Hamdi Osman story is something that has inspired many people, including myself, to be honest with you. I have read about you. I listened to people talk about you. I've had people mention you by name. And unfortunately, at that time, I didn't have the opportunity to meet you in person. But once we did, it felt like, I've known you for many years because obviously this story is always going to be there. Anything that Hamdi Osman today from this podcast of Transport and Logistics Middle East that's going to be aired to millions of people, what would be the message you want to give out from SolitAir Air Cargo Express?
One thing that I love saying it over and over and over again. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum said something, he always repeated it many times, which is feed wastafid. Win-win. Help me, I help you. And it's an Arabic word, and I happen to be also an English word. Feed, you feed, and stafid means benefit back.
That's right.
But it is about feed first. Feed first, then istafid.
Correct. That's exactly true. And I thank you very much for saying that. And just to make sure clearly what we're talking about is what you just mentioned. Feed and stafid is actually basically give and take, but you have to give in order for you to take. So basically, this is something that
It make all of us successful, and we can be united, and we can show really to the world, especially this part of the world, we can do it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamdi Osman. And thank you very much for watching this great and being with this podcast today with Mr. Hamdi Osman from SolitAir Air Cargo Express in Dubai, DWC in specific. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamdi Osman. If there's anything else I'd like to add, I really want to thank you and thank the team from Transport and Logistics Middle East for doing this podcast, and thanking your staff for making this arrangement and making this happen. Look forward to seeing you again in the very near future.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. And thank you very much, everyone.